Tell me what you want, what you need. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me what you want, what you need. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me what you want, what you need. Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me what you want, what you need. Tell me, tell me, tell me.
Welcome. As you can tell from my channel, I am a pretty big professional wrestling fan. I've actually been attending independent local professional wrestling shows in Scotland for well over a decade. Unfortunately, sometimes events happen in professional wrestling that show it in a very bad light, and that is what's happened with this event. I actually heard about this story basically pretty much as soon as it happened, because obviously these types of incidents and happenings get reported very quickly on social media. But police are investigating a so-called death match which happened at an event on the 29th of April. This report has come from the BBC News. The article that I'll read out in part is by Adam Clarkson, who is a reporter on from the BBC Radio Tees. I'll read out parts of this. A violent death match wrestling event which was staged in front of families is being investigated by police. The show at the Conservative Club in Seaham, County Durham on 29th of April saw blood-soaked performers attack each other with a garden strimmer and glass. The Colliery Championship Wrestling (CCW) event did not advertise it would be a so-called death match and had offered discounted family tickets. James Barras of CCW apologised but said the audience had enjoyed it. The 35-year-old East Durham-based promoter claimed the match between wrestlers Ronnie Thatcher and Blizzard quote-unquote escalated, and the use of weapons happened without his prior knowledge. He stated, "Things can sometimes not go to plan. Obviously there was a little bit more than went down. I spoke to the two guys afterwards. We had discussions and obviously that will not be happening again." He admitted the event wasn't everyone's cup of tea, adding, "We have apologised, but how many times do you say sorry? How many times do you have to be penalised in life?" As I said, the news of this event and news of this match at this so-called apparently family-friendly advertised event came pretty much quickly to light on social media. They say that in this article it was Teesside-based Twitch streamer and wrestler Benji who brought attention to the incident on social media, so maybe it was his stuff that I saw. I did see this again being reported on Twitter, and Benji said, "While so-called death matches were popular in some contexts, they were inappropriate for children to witness," stating, "I've never seen this in my time in wrestling. I've been involved for 7 years and I've never seen this type of ultra-violence in front of a family audience. If I see a family-friendly show advertised, I'm going in good faith that my child will be seeing what they see on TV." It continues, he does not believe that a quote-unquote death match could take place without being planned. He continues, "We've seen the packs of light tubes under the ring and the strimmer. The vast amount of light tubes they had in that show was ridiculous," he told BBC Radio Tees. "If I was a promoter and someone brought a strimmer to a show, I would know about it. I've worked for 20 companies in the UK and this is something that doesn't get past promotions." As I said, this is being looked at now by police, and a Durham Constabulary spokeswoman said, We are working with Durham County Council's licensing team after a number of complaints were received by the local authority in relation to an event at the Seaham Conservative Club on 29th of April. Inquiries are ongoing. Well, this event, this incident, this is, again, this, I really don't know where to start, to be honest with this, as a professional wrestling fan. Firstly, what is deathmatch wrestling? I'll explain it. Deathmatch wrestling, it became popularised in places like Japan and the United States of America. Deathmatch wrestling is where, as the article says, the performers will use pretty much anything and everything, from light tubes, glass, garden streamers, barbed wire. They will use all sorts of weapons on each other. I've genuinely never ever been really a fan of deathmatch wrestling. The reason being why is because a lot of it is done by, and there are some guys who have made a career out of doing it, and some guys who are really famous for it, like Mick Foley and Terry Funk, but there are a lot of the people that do it are basically amateurs, and they just literally hit each other and use anything and everything on each other, and a lot of it is not really professional wrestling. It's not even a glorified stunt show. It's just sanctioned ultra violence on each other. It's not a part of wrestling that I've really ever been a fan of. And what makes this incident even more horrific is that this event at the Seaham Conservative Club, this was apparently advertised as a family friendly event, meaning, as Benji said there, the wrestler Benji said, if you see, especially in the UK, if you see a professional wrestling event advertised, as the majority of them are, as family friendly, then if you understand obviously what professional wrestling is, your kids are a fan of it, maybe you're a fan of it, maybe your grandparents, if you go as a family to the show, you should not be witness to such ultra violent type of action. You should be able to go and see wrestling. Obviously, the wrestling is professional wrestling, but it shouldn't get particularly violent. Yes, there's going to be the occasions where somebody accidentally gets caught, where blood happens accidentally, but generally, if a show like this is advertised as family friendly, it certainly should not contain the weapons or the violence as apparently happened in this match. And that is what I think is causing a lot of criticism, rightfully so, about this event, is because this whole event was advertised as a family friendly show and not as, oh well, we have this death match taking place in a show. And to be honest, having known various different promoters over my years of attending pro wrestling shows, I firmly do not believe that Mr. Barras of CCW didn't know that this type of match was going to happen, that this type of violence was going to happen on the show. I understand that in storylines you may have wrestlers who have a one-on-one match or a tag team match and things storyline wise and planned get out of hand a little bit, so that they go to what is normally called a stipulation match in professional wrestling. So, it may be a way to elevate the feud to maybe a steel cage match or a ladder match or another type of match other than a one-on-one or 2v2 match. But for a promoter to claim that they didn't know that a match was going to go like this, I firmly don't believe. Especially as Benji says, he saw the vast amounts of light tube and glass that's, according to the articles involved, in the garden streamer. Either that promoter is lying his butt off, or he's a poor promoter, which I firmly believe it's probably the latter. He's not doing his job right. And again, I understand not every promoter can know what is going to happen in every single aspect of every single match. There could be 7 or 8 matches on a wrestling show, and I understand they don't know, right, he's going to move to the left and he's going to move to the right, and then they're going to go this way and they're going to go that way. They don't know every single step of every single match, but not to know that, so claim to know that this type of stuff is going to happen on your show, that's a pretty poor showing from that promoter. I don't know the guy, I don't know the company, but to claim that you don't know this is going to happen on your show, you're not doing your job as a promoter, and you're especially not doing your job to allow this to happen at a show advertised as family friendly. And I'm guessing he didn't step in when he saw this stuff happen, which sometimes can happen, has occasionally happened, where obviously things get out of hand or something happens. And I think it's very rare for it to happen, but if something like this happens, you think as a promoter, if you know this is a family friendly show but the wrestlers are going over the top, then you could, like Vince McMahon has done actually in WWE a couple of times, call the halt to the match, call the halt to the show temporarily, or gotten word to the wrestlers. There's easy ways of doing it these days in professional wrestling. Send somebody out to have a word with the referee so he can communicate it to the wrestlers to say, hey, less use of the weapons, or don't do this or don't do that. There's ways to do it these days in professional wrestling. Even in local independent shows, there are ways to do it. You can even just go out there and tell the ref, or call the guys out to the side, and even if you stop the match and tell them, don't do this, I don't want you doing this, or don't want to do that, especially because many venues that hold UK professional wrestling shows don't obviously like companies doing that. In fact, there's been far more regulation put forward about professional wrestling shows in the UK over the past few years. There was even a parliamentary thing, I talked about it before in the video ages and ages ago. There was an initial parliamentary report about professional wrestling that happened, I think it was last year or the year before, maybe even before this whole this current situation that's happened, but certainly just search for parliamentary report on professional wrestling, I'm sure you'll find it. But so many venues don't appreciate that kind of match happening, and again, especially in front of young kids. I mean, the really only way to do these kind of shows, and I've been to not anything remotely like this, because to be honest I wouldn't go to it. I've been to over 18 show where the action's a little bit more intense, and the wrestling's a bit more intense, and there is a little bit of use of weapons to a degree. Obviously, not even anywhere to the degree of these so-called death matches, not anywhere remotely to that. But those kind of matches should be really only held at a show that is advertised as, promoted as, and staged as an over 18s only show. Especially, again, for this kind of spotlight being shone on professional wrestling in the UK, these type of matches should only be held under those circumstances, really, where the whole show is advertised and enforced as an over 18s only event, because obviously there are reasons why different media like films, video games, and I know people say, oh, he's a funny dunny kind of guy. I'm not, but this kind of ultra violence type of thing should not be done in front of kids. The reasons why again, video games and movies and stuff are rated for adults only. This kind of stuff should be done in front of kids, especially if it's sprung on the audience. There are particular types of people who may like to go to a professional wrestling show, and again, if it's family friendly advertised, people think they're going to see similar to what they see on WWE or AEW TV, not this violent weapons filled stuff. If it's again, it sounds, from what I've heard about this event, it was just suddenly happened. And again, you get the storylines where maybe wrestlers it gets out of hand a little bit, but not to this degree. So for again the promoter to say that they didn't know this was going to happen, I call complete BS on that, because there's so many things he could have done if it really was sprung on him, and obviously it's a family friendly show, so I call complete BS on this whole situation in regards to the promoter didn't know about it. And I said, again, I don't think this should be done in front of kids at all, because kids don't understand it. They're too young to understand and process what they're seeing, and they don't understand, especially at a very young age. Often sort of these kind of death matches, the violence that they're seeing can often, like they did with glass and garden streamers and barbed wire and God knows what else could be used, what is used in these death matches. The violence can be very real, and children should not be exposed to that kind of thing. And they don't understand that the two guys are not really going to hurt each other. They're put on a show, but a more violent show. They don't understand that. So these type of matches should only be kept to these over 18s only shows. So it kind of sickens me to see this kind of thing happen in the UK, because again, professional wrestling is still a very niche product, a niche thing to see, and it shows professional wrestling. Incidents like this show professional wrestling in a very bad light, and people will assume, people who don't understand wrestling, who don't follow wrestling, will perhaps think that this is what professional wrestling is, which it is not. If you go to a family-friendly advertised show in the UK, everybody from a little grandkid to grandma with her handbag should be able to enjoy the show and not see this kind of action. This is normally, and I kind of like to want to say this, if you see a family-friendly advertised wrestling show, this is not the type of stuff that you'll be seeing. And again, the promoter to claim that he didn't know that this was going to happen and no idea and all that, I completely call BS on that. Again, I don't know the promoter. I understand mistakes will happen. It doesn't seem like from the article that he really. He says on the article later on. I didn't read the end bit, but that this has opened more doors than it's actually closed for CCW. Which is a great shame, to be honest. He says, neither party would contact about the event, talking about the wrestlers involved, and that this event had opened more doors than it closed for CCW, and is now planning to host more of these death matches, but only for over 18s. And again, there's a lot of regulation, a lot of, kind of always has been, a lot of spotlight and looking at professional wrestling from the outside. And again, events like these show wrestling, in my opinion, in a very bad light. And I do hope that Durham Police do take action in regards to this, because events like this do not help professional wrestling at all, especially when many professional wrestling organisations and promotions that are genuine about what they're doing and genuine about bringing entertainment to the entire family, when they're trying to just get back on their feet, incidents like these do not help.